So I'll start with a simple question. How many got to know about this conference from your friends? Can you show me? How many of you got to know about it from somebody in your networks? Show me by your hand. Keep that in mind. I'll come back when I'm summarizing what I've done. So, why is milk important to Kenyans? Kenyans are actually one of the biggest consumers of milk in sub-Saharan Africa, with around 140 kgs per capita per annum. And thus, dairy sector is very important for nutrition, but also for food security. What we find is that most research are so much focused on public health issues and technological issues, and very few, or small effort has gone to study about the aspect of social networks and social economic processes and also institutional issues, which are also very important when it comes to milk quality. So we started with a hypothesis that by improving milk quality, you can contribute to food safety, but also food security, which is part of helping Kenya achieve the SDG 2. So the research question we wanted to ask, number one was what is the current state of milk quality in Kenya? And then how do stakeholder social networks affect milk quality? So to start, we sampled milk using this framework, which is more on milk quality, but is also based on IFPRI's, the impact of distance to markets. And for here, we say market quality is access to a market for your produce, but also access to inputs that you use in your farm. And as you can see, we used a GIS to develop this model for sampling framework. And the area that you see in the red circle, that actually doesn't fit. And it's because Nairobi is down on the south. And what we wanted to see is capture the spatial differences between urban areas, peri-urban areas, and the extreme rural areas. We sampled milk in both formal and informal value chain in the month of July and August last year. And we analyzed this one for composition using Eco Milk Scanner, but also we looked at bacterial contamination using culturing and also milk ring test. So what we found is as you can see, the results are disaggregated depending on the peri-urban areas, mid-rural location, and extreme rural locations. And we find there is differences between these spatial areas, and especially in protein, that you find you have better protein in the urban area and extreme rural areas, but very low in the mid-rural location. But this is also what we found is most milk actually is below the recommended standards of Kenya Bureau of Standards and also East African community standards. The other interesting thing was most of the contaminated milk was in the urban areas and peri-urban areas, and very small contamination in the extreme rural areas apart from E. coli. So just a small discussion. So adulteration actually happens more in the peri-urban area, and you can see, so it's very and varies as you move towards the extreme rural areas, then you have low adulteration. And contamination was high in the peri-urban areas. And milk prices also tended to vary. They were high in the urban areas and low in the extreme rural location. We went further and we looked at what are the social networks in the dairy value chain. And we did this one using a net map, which was developed by Eva Schiffer and IFPRI. And what we wanted is to identify who are the key stakeholders and then how are linked, but we concentrated mostly on the four. So milk trade, which are milk transaction, the access to services and input, information, and also regulation. And then we went further and looked at what are the powers in the value chain, who has the power to determine milk quality. And this one we said, who determines what I buy? So who has the power to say what they want in terms of the final product? And then we looked who had the power to influence milk quality. And this is it was within their means to improve milk composition or quality. So I'll give just an example of Nakuru County. And these are the maps that we developed using Visualizer. And as you can see, like the relationship between actors are very complex. When we looked at the power to determine milk quality, you see the people who are now in red to be very important. And farmers, actually processors and cooperatives were like the most important people when it came to determining the milk, because they could either choose to buy they could choose to buy the milk that is delivered to them or reject it, and that's why they were attributed to have more power to determine milk quality. When we look at the power to influence milk quality, we realize like farmers had more power because it was within their means in the production to develop, to influence milk quality in how they behave and handle milk at the farm level. So social networks are very important because they influence human behavior. And they're also like the major thing that determines trust between actors. And what we find in Kenya, there is actually very poor integration and coordination in the informal value chain, which has negative impact on milk quality. And poor hygienic practices and also multiple handling compromises milk quality. So just to conclude, we realize that spatial differences play a very big role in milk prices, but also in milk quality. And infrastructure also contributes to these spatial differences. So you have very good infrastructure in the urban areas, but very poor in the rural areas. And this actually plays a role in the final quality of milk that reaches the consumer. Access to milk, accessory to inputs and information and incentives are also influenced by these spatial differences. So to summarize, is just say if we were to improve infrastructure in a big way, we could improve milk quality. And by helping farmers become more integrated, we can also eliminate the information asymmetry and transaction costs that are very prevalent in the dairy value chain. And there is also need, as everybody has been saying here, to involve all the stakeholders in the decision-making policies, because we realize that in as much as the informal market is very important in Kenya, everybody perceives them to be very periphery actors, whereas 80% of the milk that is sold goes through the informal value chain. And quality-based payment can play a role, but this is very at its infancy in Kenya. So it's something we hope in future could contribute to milk quality. And to summarize, I want to acknowledge the Liquid program, which is funding my PhD, and it's from a grant by NW Watro, and to ILRI for hosting me as a graduate fellow when I did my work. Thank you.